Antony dos Santos is back in the UK in Manchester to try and battle charges against him. We will be telling you a little about that. Well, Manchester United has been drawn to face Newcastle in the fourth round of the Carabao Cup. This is the same team we beat in the last final for Erik ten Hag to win his first title as boss of Manchester United. Will it be again another victory for United? We'll talk about that one as well. But there is some early team news as well concerning Man United ahead of us with Crystal Palace again. Welcome to the hotspot. My name is Webb. Again, always a pleasure to talk about Manchester United. And sip on my tea as we do get proper into that Manchester United talk. Now, guys, there is a lot of news concerning Manchester United as it is every day. I'll start off with the fact that United was drawn to face Newcastle. Now, Newcastle, remember last season, of course, reached the final thanks to that goal they got from Alexander Isak, my son's favorite player at Newcastle. By the way, my son was almost eating me in the house as Newcastle was scoring one goal after the other in their 8-0 pummeling of Sheffield United. I still don't understand why this boy just loves Newcastle, but he does love it. And I don't know how it's going to be. He's so emotional and so passionate. I don't know how he's going to feel when United beat them, in the Carabao Cup when we meet in the fourth round, because this should be a win for Manchester United, but not an obvious one. Why? Because obviously, Newcastle United is not a walk in the park. I just told you they beat someone by 8 goals to nothing away from their home. Now that shows you how good they are or how good they can be. So it's always going to be difficult to deal with them. But United must have, what it takes to deal with them and beat them. Newcastle is one of the silent good performers. I feel like they're a little like Tottenham Hotspur, so it's not the same opponent we met last time. You think Eddie Howe has, improved them quite a lot. Every day it looks like they are getting better. It looks like they are putting their thing together. You can't compare them to Chelsea. And of course, I've had people saying that Newcastle is, again, another Chelsea spent a lot of money, but it won't work. I don't think so. So Newcastle is a silent performer. Watch out for Newcastle. Whereas they haven't started so well, but they look for me as a force that is threatening. But anyhow, let's focus on our own. So Manchester United, Erik ten Hag made about 7 changes in the last game. That was our second consecutive victory in 3 in the Carabao Cup against Crystal Palace. Now you expect him to make other changes, perhaps to go back to mostly the same players who played, the game against Bayern, maybe. Because you don't think, for example, a player like Anthony Martial will start ahead of Rasmus Højlund. I think that would be a surprise. Whereas the squad, you think Rasmus Højlund will be starting up front in that number 9. Marcus Rashford might return in and start ahead because he was rested for that game. But again, Garnacho, yes, he scored, but he was not the most, the best of players. And as always, when he starts, he's not really that exciting. But I do still think, for me, if it were up to me, he should be starting ahead of Marcus Rashford. Rashford should rest a bit, but also send a message to him that even in the Carabao Cup, this benching of him being out of the squad in the Carabao Cup was not just a rotation. It was actually, to communicate to him, to send a message to him that, you're not untouchable. So I still insist, for me, Garnacho should start ahead of Rashford. However, silly it might sound, but just to send a message. Sometimes you've got to do that. I had Daley Blind. I watched an interview with Blind, the former Man United player, talking about his former boss at Ajax, that is Erik ten Hag, and his style. He's not afraid to talk to players, call them out, and make ruthless decisions, so long as for the good of the club, which is good for players. You've got to be a manager who can communicate to your players. So for me, I think it's interesting, but I do expect a dilemma for Erik ten Hag, obviously. I think he will be in a team selection dilemma because his players are beginning to pick up. There is news, probably, if I can give it to you, in terms of injuries. Raphael Varane and Harry Maguire, who started the last game, they are both fit. Of course, Raphael Varane is the one you would be more concerned about because besides being our key player, he's injury prone. So again, it's always difficult for him to give us 2 consecutive games, and he was, substituted, off in that Carabao Cup game, probably to keep him fit for the Premier League against the same opponent. So he's fit, he could be there. He will be there in that game. Lisandro Martinez is most likely not going to be playing in this game. Again, this is early news. in terms of the team. Bruno Fernandes obviously should be returning to start ahead of Hannibal, who got his second start. Another interesting performance, decent performance from him. His second game so far. Then Pelistri on the right, I think that's a position he can't actually take for himself for now, at least because Antony is not in the squad, so he can't think. Perhaps now he can take that for keeps. I love the way Sofian Amrabat was finding Pelistri. I feel like if Reguilon, and there is not so much positive news about Reguilon, he had an illness, not an injury. So if Reguilon returns, then Amrabat will be playing his preferred position, playing as the one shielding now the back line, which would be good for us because then he can distribute the ball better. And other than, but if Reguilon is not fit enough to play, then don't be surprised if Amrabat again starts on the left. But I do love his, the way he adapts. I mean, he's right-footed, plays on the left. It's not his natural position, but he was looking so comfortable. The way he was getting the ball and putting it on his right foot. Man, Amrabat has been the missing link in this Man United team. Now, we are facing the same opponent in Crystal Palace. Their goalkeeper, Dean Henderson, got an injury in that game. He's most likely not going to be starting. That was his debut for Crystal Palace. It did not go well, perhaps according to plan. But he will most likely not be available for that game. Should it be a positive for us, I feel we should focus more on our side, on ourselves, than the opponent. Who is there and who isn't shouldn't be our issue of concern now. We should focus on our house. So you think about United, Kobe Maino is training alone, which is a positive. Well, you don't be surprised if we get good news because already think about Maino and Amrabat, then Casemiro playing because you saw how Amrabat released Casemiro to give us more going forward. Mason Mount is beginning to click, got his first assist for Man United. He was pulled off at halftime, perhaps to keep him again for this coming game. This is where now the selection headache comes in for Erik ten Hag because the players seem to be picking up and injuries seem to be becoming something of the past. So I feel that where we're headed will be good headed and this good headache for the boss. And this headache is what is going to show us the depth in this squad. So my feeling is I think United is beginning to progress more steadily because the past two games, actually even the game against Bayern, for me, we played poorly against a good team. We are still a little disorganized, but I feel like we've improved in the past in the two victories. And after that, yes, Burnley, we beat them, but they outplayed us. But there was again areas of improvement. Crystal Palace was on point. Now we are playing the same opponent this weekend on Saturday. We should be able to again come perhaps even more confident this time because we start well in the first 20 minutes, we go guns blazing, and then we lose direction. Eventually we are all over the place. I feel against a team we've beaten, getting them at the same ground again, we should be able to deal with them easily. But I won't even go into the quick predictions, but because again, tomorrow it's another day, even Saturday itself, I should be able to give you something about that. But my view is that where Man United now is more comforting, and the presence of Amrabat has changed a lot. Now, I also think that Rasmus Højlund is beginning now to get in his element. I feel like he's beginning to fit in. He's beginning to feel more calm. He's beginning to feel more comfortable. I expect to see more goals from him very soon. I think he should be starting to bang in the goals. For Man United, I think, guys, we've got to be a little bit more positive. Now, I mean, I can't even go into the positive side of that game. I think I gave them to you in one of the past videos, but I think it's looking good. It's looking good for us for now. So Antony, it's not looking good for Antony. Of course, he's got in Brazil. The police does not need him to make any more statements. I think they got whatever they wanted. They're now waiting to see. Hear, listen to witnesses and what have you, and try to get a verdict. But he has got to talk to the police in Manchester to see what they think, because again, he's a Man United player. If he's going to live there for charges that are put against him, he has got to address them even in the UK, whereas they were committed in Brazil. That's how sensitive some of these countries are when it comes to these issues to do with gender, violence and what have you, which is a good thing. So let's not even focus a lot. Let's just wish that it ends well for Antony dos Santos. Now, speaking of Antony, one player who has been where he is Mason Greenwood. Good enough for Mason. He's moving on from it. Now, he assisted his first goal for for Getafe. And I mean, he's now beginning to pick himself out. Actually, I was watching highlights of him. Honestly, I didn't watch this full game, but this boy is a natural talent. And again, he's still our player. That's why I've got to talk about him. He's still a Man United player. Guys, don't forget that Greenwood is only on loan to Getafe and he will be returning in 2024. So he's still our player. We're still paying his wages. So we can talk about him as our own. And it's good to see him performing and assisting. That means when he returns, he won't need a long time to fit in and jail in because he's becoming match fit, which perhaps was the best decision for him to leave. But yeah, that's where we are. Kobe Maino still injured. Tyler Malaysia is still injured. Malaysia is still injured. What more injuries do we have in there? Of course, Lisandro Martinez, like I told you, is still doubted whether he will return. Christian Eriksen and Scott McTominay could be returning. I don't think we should be even thinking a lot about them because if Amrabat is there, Casemiro is there, Bruno Fernandes is there, Mason Mount is there. Don't tell me about Scott McTominay. Christian Eriksen, I feel like Eriksen is this one player who flatters to deceive. Like we love him because we know how good he is, but he has not really given it to us the way I personally expected it from him. So I get disturbed, thinking about him. And to be honest, and I hate to say it because I mean he's been one of my especially when he was at Spurs, he was one of my most exciting players, I think, in the Premier League. But I feel like his best is way behind him and we've got to forget about him. Now, for Pelistri, my issue with Pelistri is I saw the way he was picking up passes. He was playing a lot of negative football. And again, it is because probably he's young and growing in confidence. But I feel like Pelistri has got now to be told to try and control the ball while going forward because many of the balls he was picking from Amrabat, he was controlling them coming back. He was playing a lot of negative football, yet he's a winger. I feel like, yes, you're a winger, make a run, and then, of course, you can cut back. But I felt like even his first touch on the first control was always negative, which is not good, I think, for a winger. They will tell you. I think those who have played, I was a left winger myself, and of course also played. I used to block on the left. We used to play a 3-5-2. Back then, when we were kids in our academy, and I would block on the left all players, a left a full back. So, but anyhow, I'm not footballer. I'm just now trying to feel nice and also tell you how I played football. But my football was always street. Anyhow, so Pelistri for me that's the issue with him. But in terms of players and starting, Casemiro, Amrabat, Bruno Fernandes, Mason Mount can come in there again. Try to find a way of making them play. Of course, replace Hannibal with Bruno Fernandes. Fix Mason Mount there because when he's fit, you expect him to start. But also he played well. To be honest, he has earned it in the last game against Crystal Palace. Guys, we should be able to beat Crystal Palace fair and square. Newcastle, our opponent in the Carabao Cup. We'll talk about that more when we're towards that game. For now, guys, let's look ahead to Saturday, this 30th at Old Trafford, when we do host again Crystal Palace. What's your take on Manchester United and what changes do you think Erik ten Hag should be making? Hotspot, subscribe, drop in the comment sections all your opinions, and I'll be glad to read them as we do talk Manchester United. See you later, guys. My name is Webb. This is the Hotspot. Subscribe, fam. We are at 5K. Thank you. Let's keep growing.